On the 8th of March this year will be the Australian Grand Prix, the first Grand Prix of the 2026 season. And a lot of people will be watching early in the morning at home on their sofas, or they'll be in the stands thinking that this year is going to be like any other. It's going to be the normal thing, that it's not going to be different. But they couldn't be more wrong. 2026 is the year with possibly the most amount of changes in F1, the greatest transition. But why? And why are people excited but also nervous coming into this year? Let's start with something that was always going to change this year: the engine. Regulations on how the car is meant to be built in F1 is more important than the people who drive them. The word formula literally means the set of rules to build something. It's why we have the name Formula One. Regulations are ever changing, but every couple of years we get a big regulation set that has expectations that it's going to change the status quo. This time though, I think nearly everyone does actually believe it will. In 2026, you're going to be seeing a big change with the engines in the cars. In the previous years, the engines have been 1,000 horsepower, 84% combustion engine, 16% battery. But this regulation change is bringing in a 50-50 split. They're saying 50% combustion engine, 50% battery. And you're going to hear a lot of people say 50% combustion, 50% battery, a 50-50 split. They're wrong, but they're close. It's actually 53.6% combustion and 46.9% electrical. That's not 50-50, but when you think about it, 56.3%, 46.9% split doesn't sound as good as 50-50 split, which is better for marketing. There's also a fear around a loophole in the compression of the combustion engines that Mercedes have apparently exploited for the new season. However, the FIA are meeting later in January to decide if this should be illegal or not, and possibly stop another 8 years of Mercedes dominance. The fuel that we put into the cars in 2026 will be 100% sustainable fuel. That means F1 is going green and saying goodbye to their good old friend, crude oil. Suppliers of fuel such as Aramco, BP, Shell, Exxon, and Petronas will be providing teams with their 100% sustainable fuel. The science behind it is quite complicated, but in simpler terms, they take water and carbon dioxide from the environment, they split the water into hydrogen and oxygen, take the hydrogen, combine it with carbon dioxide to create hydrocarbons that will fuel the cars. It's actually a system that's not exactly new. It was used in the 1940s to supply 9% of the German army with fuel. But what's important is that this is saving the planet, this is saving the trees. Or is it? You see, the cars only actually make up 0.7% of total carbon emissions for Formula One as a sport. So in the grand scheme of things, you're not actually making that much of a difference to the planet or the environment. But it's more of a question of, is this a sign of the future, or is this more of big oil greenwashing? Every year there's a big buzz around driver and team changes. This year is no different. We've got a new soul taking the devil's chair in Redbull. We've got a brand new British driver who's also Swedish and Indian origin. But the big news of this year is a team swap. A team that many of people have known as Sauber or Steak Sauber or Kick Sauber if your country doesn't like gambling will be replaced by the German automotive great Audi. This isn't exactly new news. We've known Audi are going to join the sport since 2022 and in articles way before that behind the scenes. But they wanted to join in 2026 because of the option to make their own F1 engine. Their sister team Porsche wanted to get in too. They are a signature away from acquiring 50% of Redbull. But they wanted more, and Red Bull wanted less. So Red Bull turned down Porsche and went to Ford, who they'll be partnering with for their powertrains in 2026. Honda, who had previously supplied engines for Red Bull, will now be supplying for Aston Martin in 2026. Alpine, who had planned to provide engines for themselves in 2026, had it pulled from them after poor performances by Renault. They will be having Mercedes engines instead for 2026, alongside Williams, McLaren, and obviously Mercedes themselves. After 4 years of negotiation, however, we will have a brand new team on the F1 grid. Cadillac will be joining, building everything from the ground up for the brand new season. They will be, however, having engines from Ferrari, not building their own, but they have said in the distant future they would possibly like to do that. They have two brand new drivers, two old dogs who might have learned some new tricks, Sergio Perez and Valtteri Bottas. The Mexican and Australian or Finnish driver, depending on who you ask, are coming in with some scores to settle. Drag reduction system, or DRS as it's known, is now gone in 2026. In its place, we've got something that sounds like it belongs in a spaceship fighter movie: X Factor and Z Factor. They help on the corners and on the straights. We've also got the ability to open up the front wing and the back wing at the same time to help with drag reduction. But the biggest change of all is that there are no more DRS zones. Drivers are able to do the previous things I've just mentioned on any part of the track. The cars are shorter and thinner. They've also got blinkers on the mirrors to help cars behind them in wet conditions see them, and the floors are flatter and the diffusers are longer to help reduce ground effect. There are calendar changes as well. Imola, the Grand Prix track where Ayrton Senna, the legendary Brazilian F1 driver, sadly lost his life, is now off the calendar this year. Spain is getting a second Grand Prix this year with the Grand Prix Madrid along the street circuit of, you guessed it, Madrid. And thirdly, Azerbaijan will be the second track this year to race on a Saturday, not a Sunday, alongside Las Vegas. However, the reason for it is not due to time zones, it's due to the Sunday that's normally designated for the race being Remembrance Day for the country. But there is a lot on the line next year for teams and drivers, especially for 3 out of 4 world champions, Verstappen, Alonso and Hamilton. They've all heavily hinted, but not entirely admitted, that if this year isn't their year, if they can't win a championship, let alone win a race, then this might be a time for them to call it quits and look elsewhere for their twilight years. It's a real scare that this could be the last year for 3 of the most successful and legendary drivers in the sport. Charles Leclerc has said if this isn't Ferrari's year, then it may never be, and he might have to look elsewhere. How are Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri going to fare if they're in a championship fight again? Will Papaya rules stay true? There's a lot to look at for this coming year, but trust me, you don't want to miss it.
If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like and subscribe. If you're interested in daily news posts, please check out the channel Shorts, and thank you very much for watching.